looking back on all the hard times, oh my gosh, I love my life. I love what I do. Um, I could talk about the amazing things that I get to do and the benefits of it, but I think everyone who probably listens to this show like gets it. Like they've got a dream for what it is that they want.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for another episode of the Parentpreneur Show. I have the great pleasure of introducing Mr. Alex Barker, all the way from Norway, Michigan, United States of America. Alex is the CEO and founder of the Happy PharmD. And I would like to ask you, Alex, to tell the audience exactly what that is, who you are, and a little bit about your background. Yeah, what is a PharmD? Have I said that correctly?
Do you own a farm? It's
I should say
It's PHARMD, PharmD, Doctorate of Pharmacy, which is the degree that any pharmacist gets here in the United States now. So we are a career coach company to pharmacists specifically, and we help them get jobs that they absolutely love.
That's fantastic. When I first came across you, I loved two things immediately. One, you were in the video room where we were all discussing this new beta software that we're all trying out.
Yeah.
And two, you were on your walking desk, which I absolutely loved.
Yes, it's right next to me. I've walked 10,000 steps today and I'm tired. So I'm sitting down for this podcast, which is not normal. I normally like to stand, but I have to admit, like my legs, they're not what they used to be.
I'm impressed. You've done 10,000 by what, 2:30 in the afternoon already. So that's pretty good going. Normally it takes me the whole day.
To get it in. I have to get it in. Otherwise, if I don't, I kind of lounge. Before getting this treadmill, my man, I was walking maybe 2,000 steps in a day and I started getting a tummy. So I said, all right, time to invest, time to do something about it.
I love that. The only other person I know with a walking desk is my PT coach. My PT coach is actually a Brit, but he lives in Vancouver, in Canada. And he puts it down to the fact that it's Vancouver, Canada. So, he can't get out. It's cold a lot of the time. So he has it there so he can get some steps in. So
same in Michigan, man. It's way too cold. I try not to live here during the winter because it's just abysmal during the winter.
What do you do then? Where do you go?
Oh, just about anywhere that's warmer than here, which is anywhere south of like North Carolina's. We have plans this year to go to Puerto Rico, Florida, Georgia, kind of just hop skipping everywhere. We homeschool our kids, so we don't really have to stay in one location. And so we try to go anywhere where it's around 70 most of the time.
That's fantastic. That's a real key sort of foundation for me, is having that flexibility as an entrepreneur and a parent. And you've taken it, up a few notches from where I am. How easy is that to find a balance between keeping focused on your business, but also having that, sort of additional responsibility of the homeschooling and, being fairly fluid with your location?
Well, it's not an easy answer. It's a journey before a destination. I think every parent has to figure it out over time. And I have to admit, I think my journey has been accelerated by the loss of my father. I lost my dad just about a year and a half ago now. And that really forced me to face, I think, a lot of the guilt and shame that I had as a dad, that I guess I was never living up to the expectations of who I thought I was meant to be as a father. And through losing him and realizing how much guilt and shame I had in my life, has really helped me come to peace with who I am and who I am as a father. And ultimately to not listen to a lot of the negative things that I would tell myself as a dad, like, you're not being good enough, you could do more, look at you, you're enjoying your video games right now, and you're missing out on your kids doing stuff. I've been able to put to rest those voices that ran rampant in my mind for years, for most of my kids' childhood. it's been a battle of thought. And so now it'll be interesting for me to listen to this, 10 years from now, but I feel right now very much at peace with who I am, who my children are, my relationship to them, and who I am as a father. But it's been a tumultuous journey to get to this point.
That's fascinating. I lost my father about 8, 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And I didn't really question. My kids came, my eldest came actually 6 months after my father died. So we never had that crossover, which was a real disappointment for me.
Mm.
But I wasn't sure where my parenting styles would come from. Those high expectations, you were just saying you were being quite judgmental of yourself. Was that a function of how you were sort of brought up, or was that some sort of like social ideal that was just there in your subconscious?
I think it's a combination of upbringing, society, professionalism, um, and ultimately the profession I chose. Um, Anyone who goes into a collegiate program will know that you're either right or you're wrong, and you're wrong most of the time. and and my father taught me to work hard, and he did that by example, and he did that through the spoken word as well. He was never hard on me, but he had very high expectations for me. He knew I was very intelligent. I was book smart enough to finagle my way into A's and B's, you know? And I do say finagle as a choice word because I would scheme and plot my ways to getting those grades. And because he had such high expectations for me, I really brought that into my adulthood. And when I failed, it felt like, the world was crashing around me. When I when I got my first D minus on my very first test in pharmacy school, it felt like, okay, everything up to this point in my life has been a sham. I'm a total wreck. And I think that um, he was very hard on himself. Um, he he got satisfaction from hard work, and I would never say that he put that on me. Like, he never told me like this is the way to be. This is just who he was. Um, and I adopted that, um, both in the way I worked and the way I parented. Only only now do I come to terms with who I really want to be, and how that plays a role with I suppose my children. Now that you've had children for some time, do you feel like your dad's parenting has influenced the way you you come across with your children and your relationships?
That's a great question. It's not a million miles away from your experience. My dad was 11th of 12 Irish immigrant. Yeah, Irish immigrant family, no TV, obviously. And his parents worked and grafted hard, right through as well. My nan, my grandmother, she grafted right into 80s. She was still pottering around doing things for people. And that kind
Wow.
of working class ethic really rubbed off on my father. It was quite funny. I remember once my father retired in quite a senior role in Shell in the oil company.
Mm.
And I remember he was hosting a dinner party in the Netherlands where we were living at the time. We got to move around a lot with his job. And he was there over the sort of prawn cocktails explaining how he was working class. And I just like burst out laughing and sprayed, Mary Rose sauce all over the table going, you're what? You're here having a dinner party. What I think,
Yeah.
but again, like you just said, he had a very strong work ethic. It was work hard and good things will come to you. Put your head down, knuckle down. But then I loved your word finagle. That's brilliant. I'm going to use that. I was,
Feel free.
yeah, thank you.
I've stolen it as well.
There's very few original words. I think I found it's a question for me of working a wee bit smarter than harder, and that's how I chose to approach life. I'd be the cheeky one and go, really sorry, miss, I forgot my maths paper. Give a cheeky smile, make a joke, and then bring it in the next day and get away with it. I
Yeah.
do think his sense of discipline I've tried to soften, but I have encouraged it with my kids, that's for sure. That's something where I do see it. I have my son does his nut with me because I have all these little sayings. He says, "Oh, Dad, you're full of riddles." They're not riddles, they're just like little memorable phrases, and one of them is, you got to do what you have to do before you do what you want to do, whether that's you're reading before your Nintendo or whatever else it is. So I think that's where I've applied it. Put it back to you. It's interesting. Aside from the D minor on your first paper, do you think you actually failed, or do you think you just had these unrealistic expectations or these sort of fairly nebulous rules of what success and failure were?
I think the theme is expectations. In my book, the first chapter in it is I'm a terrible pharmacist. And it's a book, it's called Indispensable, The Prescription for a Great Pharmacy Career. And I have constantly talked about that with people because what resonates with my audience so well is people feeling like they're a failure when everyone else seems to be winning. And if everyone's looking at each other thinking that they're all winning, but they're failing, it's a matter of perspective and expectations. I have failed spectacularly over the span of my career. Some of the things I've had to go through are things I wouldn't wish on anyone. But I think actually it goes back to what I just said earlier, journey before destination. I mean, everyone wishes to be at the end or afraid of the end being the worst case scenario. Like when I'm beating myself up about not doing this or doing that with my kids, I'm afraid of the ill future for my children where they become all the things that I'm afraid of. And it's all because I decided to, play video games by myself instead of hanging out with them. Like it's silly things. But one of the lessons I've learned recently as CEO of my company is that my mind really is bad at running my life. It loves to worry. It loves to be afraid. It loves to come up with scenarios for me to be concerned about that aren't even real. It did it today before this podcast. My mind was racing, but I very quickly was able to slow it down and to really embody my zone of genius and just chill out and realize that my mind is playing tricks on me, whether I'm being CEO or being a dad. And I think all of our minds do that it loves to be in charge, and it's very bad at it.
Yeah, I always say it's like, we were operating off a 10,000-year-old operating system. It was good to be cautious if you didn't know the red berries were poisonous or not. It was good to be cautious if you didn't know the rustle in the bushes was, your friends coming back or a animal with sharp pointy teeth. But we've progressed so much, but the operating systems haven't really. And I think what you just said there is so true. It's a question of being very mindful. You have to kind of catch yourself the whole time. Again, one of my annoying little sayings with the kids is, thoughts become feelings, feelings become actions, actions become reactions from the outside world back to you. So you want to change something, you've got to start with yourself and getting into your genius zone. I love that. That's obviously a really helpful tool. Is that the right way to phrase it? A tool? Is that something that you use a lot? Not necessarily getting into your zone of genius, but tools and sort of like little hacks to get yourself focused with your entrepreneurial lifestyle?
Being able to separate my mind from who I am, kind of that
Yeah,
concept.
to kind of
Yeah.
compartmentalize your life and focus on what the most important thing right at that moment is.
Yeah. I would, if I had to call it something, I think it would be something like slowing down to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to give you a very fresh example, one of my team members um, is ill, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, and my mind started to race about future worries, concerns. Do I need to hire more people? Do I need to figure out how to help this person? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And it even got as almost as far as coming up with like the worst case scenarios. And while it's definitely my role as CEO to be visionary and to think 5 steps ahead of where we are now, um, this is a hypothetical scenario where I don't have all the information.
Mm.
And my mind, I very quickly was able to see my mind is wanting to be busy because I don't have a reason to be busy anymore with how I've set up my business. Like I don't need to constantly be working. And it's almost like it's a reactionary thing
Mm.
where, you know, I don't know the origins of you or your business, but when I got started, I was very much driven to the hustle mentality and work, and work as hard as you can for as long as you can, and you'll get success. Well, I gained that success, and then I quickly realized that those habits stuck with me.
Mm.
And so it's hard to give up addictions.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely a recovering addict for sure.
I came at it in a slightly different way. I had a corporate career. I had a scientific career. I came out of university and used my degree in science, then went into finance and trading and all that sort of stuff. But when I
Mm,
stepped away and I realized that I actually enjoyed my own hustle, as you put it, I also realized that there were sort of like back to being, you know, working smart, not hard. And
yeah.
I was a very early adopter of putting in processes and systems. And, you know, like you're saying now, you can step back, you know, work on my business, not in it. Um,
Yeah.
I like the idea that you are strategic in your thinking with your business. Maybe let's just dive into the business a little bit more, because it didn't start there. Like many entrepreneurs, your business, your entrepreneurial business, came from a dissatisfaction, as I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah. Like it's the classic story of, I wish I had this solution, so I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
That does come with its own set of problems eventually. But for me, um, when I entered the profession, I had two really big problems. The first one was bullies in the workplace, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a backbone. You know, I'm a fresh blood. I have no idea how to stand up for myself. So that's one problem that made my life a hell. But the other major problem was I don't really enjoy this. Like I'm not happy. I'm not in. I thought I was going to like it, and I did it, and then I'm like, this is kind of boring. This is monotonous. This isn't creative. It's not fun. And so I very much fell into the world of leadership and personal development and then business. And I kind of went wild with my creativity, and I did way too many things. But coaching was one of the skills that I had learned and practiced for about 5 years. And then in 2017, I said, okay, I'm just going to pick one thing, because I
Mm-hmm.
keep changing my mind every 6 months about what I'm doing. And then I did it, and I found success, and I created momentum. And in 2018, I quit my job to do this full time. And it's been a wild ride. And we had a pandemic, and now we have a recession, and we're still killing it. Like it's been fun, challenging, rewarding. And there's definitely been times too where I've like wish could have, I wish I had never left my job. But looking back on all the hard times, oh my gosh, I love my life. I love what I do. I could talk about the amazing things that I get to do and the benefits of it, but I think everyone who probably listens to the show like gets it. Like they've got a dream for what it is that they want to obtain through their business. And it seems to me like for most, it's always about design, whether it's for your life, for your work, or for family, right? Which fits in life. Is that what drove you to get into business for yourself? Was the life part of the equation?
It was the life part. So, you know, kids came to me quite late on. So I'm 50 now, and my eldest is nine and a half. So prior to that,
my youngest is 9.
cool. There we go. It's a good age, actually. It's
oh yeah,
you have 2 girls, is that correct? Yeah,
2 girls. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I have one of each. The boy's the eldest, and he's had that first spurt of testosterone, and my God, is it obvious? It's tough. It's tough. It's like, you know, if he's any taller, we would be butting heads at times. But yeah, I think it was very much about lifestyle, and it was also very much about, I've always had a very clear line of sight of what how I want to do things, how it should be done. I've always been a little bit contrarian, and I'm ever so slightly sort of introverted as well. I kind of first realized I might be not cut out for the sort of like vast majority of careers. I dipped into the Army recruitment center when I was on my way home from university one term, popped in, sat down, said I wanted to join up the guards, which, sort of all the ones who guard the palaces and all that sort of stuff over here. And sat down with the psychometric test, and the chap came back and went, "Yeah, you have an issue with authority, sir." I went, okay. that might not work.
You didn't get accepted into the easiest thing to get into.
No, it seems that you may have issues with being told what to do. And I went, yeah, actually, do you know what? You're probably right. The first job I had to do with my degree, I studied geology, and I worked offshore back in South Africa. We were diamond mining. But I was there managing the shifts, managing the teams, getting all the samples in. But meantime, I was planning how this business was going to look, and I was planning how I would like run it from the office back in Cape Town, not from a ship off the west coast of Africa, sort of thing. So I kind of realized early doors the only way I was going to be able to sort of scratch that itch was by doing my own thing. Kids just made it a no-brainer. The pleasure of, I've got a day of meetings tomorrow, but dropping them off and then, heading off to my meetings. Perfect. I wouldn't have it any other way. Next week, we're going to disappear midterm. So please don't tell the headmistress. Actually, to be fair,
That's
by the
so
time
British.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. By the time this is published anyway, we'll have been back anyway. She might
you
not
say
notice.
Headmistress in America, and you're going to think that you're into some sadomasochistic stuff. Not school, but well, I can relate. My mother was an Army brat. Her first marriage was to a helicopter pilot. Her father was a Vietnam vet. So, the Army was like heavily encouraged. And I'm so glad I never intended or listened to that, because my detention record, which, do you have detentions in Britain? Yeah. I had way too many. Like I never got expelled or suspended where you're kicked out of class, for a whole day for your behavior. But like I pushed the limits of what I could get away with. And I've never been a rule follower, which makes it so weird that I'm a pharmacist. Cause like, you don't want your pharmacist, like, oh, maybe you should have some more, opioids. Like maybe that is a good idea. I'll just throw a few in for you, like you don't want that kind of behavior.
No, well, especially not in the States with the opioid situation as it is. You just touched on a really interesting dichotomy, though. You said earlier that you didn't enjoy it. You mentioned the fact that there was bullying in the workplace, etc. And then the very fact that you push boundaries and push the limits. All of that so clearly signpost in retrospect or from afar that okay, go off and do your own thing. You're clearly destined to be an entrepreneur. Just from pure timelines, if your youngest is 9, the kids kind of came pretty much post.
Oh, they came. Well, the first one was oh, whoops. Is that how condoms work?
Put them on your head.
Yeah. We yeah, it was a surprise. So our first came during my final year of graduate school.
Okay.
That was not planned. And then the second one came about a year and a half, actually technically the second one came about 2.5 years after our first. So there's about a 2.5 year gap between our two kids, and we had them young. We are odd parents in our culture specifically. I mean, if you're, I want to say if you are middle class, it's odd usually to have children in your early 20s. Mm-hmm. A lot of my colleagues who are my age are just now having children. So we're an odd pair. Like I've never fit into, I never fit in. You're right. I've never fit into any group. Entrepreneurs, is probably the group that I fit the best into because we are so odd and different.
Yeah.
But even then, like there's very few people my age that have kids our age. But joke's on them. Sorry for you. When I'm 50, I'm going to be in the Bahamas, no kids, no nothing, but
I'm going to have mine feeding me soup,
right. In a couple of years. Yeah. And they'll be getting married.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all downhill. Well, that'll teach me for getting married twice. So,
but you and I have benefited from that kind of behavior, right? Being misfits helps us stand out, helps us do things differently, think differently. I don't think I would have ever started a business had I not gone through the journey and who I am. It's hard to accept that because it kind of it's the death of an identity, right? It's a death of I was this, I decided to be this once, and I'm no longer going to be it. And that not everyone can take on that kind of, I don't want to say psychological trauma, but psychological stress of putting to rest a part of you. It's not easy.
It's a fluidity that you have to be comfortable with. It's kind of drawing on the Eastern sort of philosophies. There is no moment but right now. That's it. What you were yesterday is not what you are today. So and that constant dynamic, that dynamic equilibrium. I had a martial arts teacher, and that was how he explained martial arts. It's a dynamic equilibrium. You are constantly moving, constantly flowing, and not everybody's comfortable with that. A lot of people feel they need to know their little box, and they need to be told what to do in that little box, when and how.
Yeah, it's a good dichotomy to bring in because of Western culture and how, well, ultimately anyone in the technical field is going to be drawn to Eastern philosophy because it's so in opposition to Western thought, right? And how we're constantly looking forward, right? And we can never be settled with the present. But to be told that you can be in the present, it's very appealing. I mean, I didn't learn meditation until like 5 years ago. So I can agree fully. It sounds like you've adopted those principles as well.
Yeah, massively. I funnily enough, because we got one of our kids, the eldest, is on the spectrum with hyperfocus, and we're pretty sure the younger one is somewhere that along the same sort of lines. We as a family, we went about 3 summers ago now, we went and learned TM, transcendental meditation, as a family. So which was fantastic. We each took our turns with the teacher and did that, and the kids have their little magic word. Yeah, and I try to do it every day. If it's not a sort of a TM session, it will be a mindfulness, or it could just be a walk in nature. We, live on the edge of a town with some beautiful countryside, so it's very easy to drift out. And I think just
Yeah.
detaching yourself from everything going on around you just gives you a sense of calm and clarity, which I lacked as a younger person, for sure. I was always the little man, little attitude, sort of, little man attitude. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in my 30s. I'm 35 right now, and I
yeah.
finally feel like I've I've been able to quiet my mind at least a little bit. It's a challenge, and when you're creative, um, typically any entrepreneur is creative.
Mm,
It's hard to not get wrapped up in your work, your purpose, your vision. It's a challenge to slow down in order to even really question if your idea is a valid one.
mm.
Um, and it's a personal journey that I don't think anyone, you could create a course about that, but until you learn it through experience, you will be never able to adapt to that model. It's so challenging.
It is true, and it's a constant. Every day is a school day, right? You always need to be open. The days when I'm not open, they're the days where I have a bad day. Pure and simple. It's like, no, we are going to do it this way. Bang bang, force through, and
I use
it's
drugs and video games. That's what helps me.
yeah. See, there is an upside to your study.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
All the years and the money, yes, there's some benefits.
yeah, fair dues. Um, Meditation's one thing. Do you have other sort of like daily routines that you like to anchor your sort of habits around, or is it just the TM? Or it was meditation? You didn't say it was TM. That's me.
If I'm honest with you, I do some things, but I'm not consistent in them. I think anytime you listen to some of these gurus and some of the things that they recommend doing, it's like, you're not doing that all the time. Knock it off.
Nah.
At least that's my perspective.
Yeah.
Um, so I use meditation when I'm thinking or developing a really big project, and I use it for when I feel I'm getting frantic. I can usually enter a state of flow where time kind of melts away naturally, but there's moments where like I'll get frantic about an idea, and I begin to like research things that are ancillary to the topic, like
Mm.
how long do marmosets live for? I don't know, and that's when I say, okay, my mind is moving faster than what I can work. So
Mhm.
I'm going to slow down. I'll do some meditation. I use the Calm app,
Yeah.
but I'm not consistent in it. Have you ever talked to those people who like they exercise or they meditate and they say something like, "Oh, I love it. I do it every day and I just feel so good after I do it." You know those people?
Yeah, I do, but like you, I call out BS on them because doing it
Well,
every day is just, you know.
it's insane, but for I suppose I mean more people who like exercise and they benefit from it. When I exercise, I feel like I have less energy than when I started, you know? And I've always felt that way. Even when I do the same things that people say, "Oh, I do this and I feel so good." I don't feel any different. And so I really enjoy doing things that make me feel better when I benefit from them most. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I exercise regularly, but um I that's when I use those habits is when I'm not in my state of genius, I suppose, is to get
Yeah.
me back on track.
I've learned to use exercise as a reason to then rest, because I don't know about you, but my mind's always on the go, not necessarily on the lifespan of a marmoset, but it's always on the go, and I'm always scribbling notes down or recording voice notes. But I find that after I exercise, and I exercise 5 or 6 days a week, and I make sure I'm tired at the end of it, because then I know, as I get older as well, especially, I have to rest, and I
Mm.
will go and just chill. I'll read a book for an hour or two, afterwards. The reading might be along the entrepreneurial lines, but hey, I'm sitting on my backside on a sofa reading a book. That's rest. It's
Yeah.
as close as I'm going to get to it. Yeah, I think it's great to have a framework. One of your 5 a.m., he's actually a 4 a.m. ice bath kind of compatriots, Mr. Jocko Willink. He's he has a lovely saying. I don't believe in the, I do believe he gets up at 4 a.m. and I do believe he does ice baths, but I don't think it's necessary. But he does say that the freedom lies within the discipline. So if you've got a loose framework, and I try to do this with the family as well, if there's a loose framework, you know that bedtimes are pretty much uniform across the week, whether it's the weekend or not. Meal times, sports routines, all that stuff, if that's all there, that's where those little gaps of magic, those little gaps of really being able to embrace and enjoy being an entrepreneur happen. So that's what I think. Alex, how do you bring your family into the business on a practical basis? Are they aware of what you do? But also, how do you, when you're doing the business, because it's inherently risky being an entrepreneur, how do you find that balance between family security but also pushing the boundaries?
When you say security, what comes to mind is financial security. Is that what you're hinting?
I think again, financial security offers a framework, right? I've been, who was it? I can't remember. It was a comedian said, I've been poor and miserable, I've been rich and miserable. Give me rich and miserable every time.
Yeah,
it gives
absolutely.
you choice, right? Money gives you choice. Let's be honest.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I would echo that sentiment. I would definitely rather be poor, or I'm sorry, rich and miserable than poor and miserable. My family has a vague notion. My children have just figured out that, like, I don't work for time. Like, the exchange for time for money is a newer concept for them. And they're like, they understand jobs. They understand that people get paid for jobs. But when they've learned that, like, Alex, dad is a CEO 100% of the time, and his mind doesn't shut off, like, that concept to them is very foreign. So it's been interesting to see them ask me questions about that. But when they ask me what I do, or someone asks them what I do, they'll say, oh, he has a coach company and he teaches people. Like, that's what they'll say. As far as the risk goes, I've settled on really two main concepts that have helped me accept the risk. And the first one is that I'll never stop working. The idea of retirement, the idea of, like, okay, I'm no longer going to be this. I'm no longer going to be a coach or a teacher or a speaker. That is really an ugly concept to me. I still fight the urge to save my money. We do save some of our money. Like, of course, we have emergency funds, and we do have what's called here in the States a Roth IRA, where you put your money aside and let the stock market take it. I have those things, but I don't put my hope in them. I don't put my trust in them. I love what I do. In my spare time, I come up with ideas to make money. So, like, I don't worry about a future where Alex is destitute, his business has failed, and he needs to start again from scratch. Because if that does happen, I have my natural ability to make money. I'll do that, whatever that ends up being. And I'll be probably surrounded by people that I love and trust me and are really good friends. So, as a friend once told me, you're living like a millionaire, just without the millions.
I think that's how it should be. I think if you question most people who say they want to have millions and millions of dollars, pounds, whatever it is. It's not actually the money they want, it's the lifestyle or that they aspire to that surrounds it, be it the travel, be it the doodads, the cars, the houses, etc. And it
Yeah.
probably costs a lot less than they realize. What you've just said is incredibly liberating though, and so entrepreneurial. If it all goes wrong tomorrow, that's fine. I'm inherently capable of making money. That's
Yeah.
amazing to hear.
Yeah. I'll I had a job for a few summers where I would mow grass at a golf course.
Yeah.
I know how to do that. I can go do that in my area now. Would it be hard? Yeah, absolutely. Would I lose time in my evenings? Would I not be able to play so many video games? Yeah. But I could go do that. I remember it was like right before I was going to quit my job. And my job it was a really good job. I'll say that. It was very easy and it had amazing benefits. It had a pension, which is unheard of in American culture today, to have a company that will give you a pension. It had an amazing Roth IRA program where they would match up to like 5%. I was getting paid very, very well, over $100,000 a year. And my bullies left my job. And I remember asking a friend who was an entrepreneur, a Canadian fellow, and I said, so what do you do? Like, do you have this kind of Roth IRA? Do you work with Wealthfront or Vagabond or, I was naming off companies. He's like, what do you mean setting aside money? I'm going all in on my business. And I was like, oh, that's the level of commitment that I'm missing from my life. And that's what's been holding me back, really, is full on commitment.
Burn the boats on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very liberating to hear that from him. Just a natural, like not a speaker talking to me about a foreign concept, just like the real life commitment that this guy had to his business. And he didn't know, where it was going to take him 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. And I still have my Roth IRA. I still have my pension. I'm not selling those things, but I'm full on living my life. And even if my current business fails, I have like 4 other ideas,
Yeah.
I could go do those things. And I could also, the cool thing about entrepreneurship too, and I'm sure you experience this, is like people want a piece of the action. People want your knowledge and your experience. They want to know stuff. So like, I could go sell that if I really wanted to. I'll never be destitute unless the world goes to the crapper, and then everyone is in the can.
Well, everyone's going to be in the same boat, but people like you and I will find a way of making something happen in that boat. So yeah. I think that's it's always the way, isn't it? I actually, at my 50th birthday, I had a dinner party, famous chef over here, chef's table, and there were 5 other couples, myself and my wife, and one of my friend's wife, she's a good friend as well. She said, you know what, when you come back from the dog walks with my husband, he is such a nice person. He is so much better. He's so much more motivated. He knows what he's doing. You should really be selling this knowledge. And it was purely on that. I thought, wow, do you know what? I'm just having a conversation as I walk around the countryside with my friend, and walking his dog. But yeah, most people don't appreciate the mountain of knowledge that they're sitting on, basically because it's under their backsides. But
right,
yeah, but people, you're very inspiring, Alex, to talk to you, because your energy and your optimism, but also your intelligence are just like really, sort of they shine through in this conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, it's a pleasure. I don't hand out compliments easily. As you get to know me over time, you'll realize that's true.
Yeah, that would mean more if I knew, but I'll take
Yeah,
your word for it.
exactly. Listen back to this in 10 years' time. You go, oh shit, yeah, he did actually mean it. So I'm conscious of your time and of Poppy and of birthday parties coming up. So I'll just one more question, and then we'll kind of sort of wrap things up. Your Canadian buddy sounds quite inspirational, but are there any other kind of people who inspired you, not necessarily to become an entrepreneur, but kind of gave you that little bit of chutzpah, that little bit of steel to become, the Alex Barker that we have today?
Well, there's so many people on the journey. But what triggered it was podcasts, actually. So, hey, maybe we'll trigger for someone else on this show. But for me, I listened to a fellow by the name of Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income. He's a well-known business podcaster now in this space, and he's inspired probably thousands of people. I remember listening to his show while driving in the mountains during my residency and thinking like, this could be me one day. Not that I would be Pat Flynn, but, just someone that he interviewed on his show. And it is surreal to accept that I manifested that, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago now. And it's been a journey. So, I'd have to attribute him for sure. In fact, you can't really see it on my wall. I'm not sure if you're going to publish the video or not, but there's a Star Wars image behind me with me and a bunch of my friends that are in a mastermind together. And at the very top of this is actually Pat Flynn as the evil emperor, the mastermind behind it all. And on that picture is actually a bunch of my friends that were in my business mastermind that I put together way back in 2015. And some of them are still hanging out with me every week. And they have been with me when I felt like giving up. They've been with me when I felt like I had nothing more to give. They were with me when my dad was dying. And, they saw what was special about me and kept pushing me to, I would say, push aside the not so great ideas to really focus on the few ideas. And I owe them a lot, as well as my coaches as well. I have an amazing and wonderful coach now who's actually coaching like 3 other members of my team. And so, each one has played a huge role. I mean, as well as my team. We've got now 25 people on our team, and each of them are amazing in their own way, and they contribute to the overall vision that we have for our company, which is, ultimately changing pharmacists' lives and helping them. So, and of course, my wife, who is, I would say the kids are motivating, but they don't give me business advice. They're bad at that kind of thing.
I'd worry if you took advice from your kids.
That could be an interesting show, like present really complex business problems and be like, what do you think?
Yeah. Here's the whiteboard. Go do your worst.
Yeah. But my wife has supported me directly and indirectly through my business. She has been my biggest believer, and she's been, a huge risk taker, because she doesn't work. She homeschools our kids, and she helps out here and there in the community. And so, to go from a 6-figure earner to scraping by entrepreneur, that was a big risk for her as a wife, knowing, she kind of got a jackpot husband in college, making big money right out of college, and then to go from that to a few $1,000 in the beginning a month, was a lot to give up on. And she never once was like, you're such a stupid husband. She's never been condescending for me or my dreams. I see that kind of thing sometimes in like TV shows or movies, and it's so foreign that it feels just as heavy to anyone who's never been an entrepreneur, I suppose. So that would be a modicum of the people that have been alongside me in my journey.
That's awesome. Accountability groups, masterminds, phenomenal coaches as well, but kids as a motivator, both good and bad. You kind of get up and think, oh shit, I better make stuff happen today. And also, the positive side of it as well. Yeah. And having, behind every great man, etc. I can imagine that conversation that you coming home and say, hey, honey, I've shrunk the budget. We're going entrepreneurial. That's a brave and strong woman.
Megan has been so powerful. There have been a few months when the pandemic happened. We had a few bad months on top of I lost my dad to cancer. So it was a year-long battle. And I think there was at least a month or two where I said, don't pay me anything, from the business. And yet I was still working. And for my wife to be okay with that was reassuring that I was making at least a decision she agreed with. It probably wasn't the right decision at the time. I could have forced the business to pay myself. But when you're dealing with the loss of a father, it feels like everything around you is falling apart, And so my wife has been my shining star through it all. That is for sure.
That's a very, very strong testimony. Thank you. Alex, I feel we've only scratched the surface and there are so many.
Oh yeah, we could keep talking. I've got a few more minutes, but yeah. Let's record another episode.
I was going to say, I think there's an episode 2 in this, if you're open to that. But yeah, there are so many rabbit holes and verticals here. I feel we could go down from Eastern philosophy to sort of cold showers and meditation and whether it's true or not, whether people really do it every day. I think what I'd like to do now is give you the opportunity to sort of give the Parentpreneur Show viewers and listeners a taste of what's going to be coming up for the Happy PharmD in the next year, in the next 5 years, your big vision and expectations and goals.
Well, for me, it's all about casting a bigger vision. At first, it was just about helping people get jobs. But now I'm seeing the potential for actually reshaping my entire industry. So I'm doing that in a couple of ways. One, it's of course through having a very powerful career advancement and coaching program that we've been running this entire time. But now I've got my eyes set on shaping the entire industry through a really powerful community where people are sharing what's exciting. They're giving feedback to each other. And of course, they're inspiring and encouraging others to go forth and create. I've never wanted to be like the most intelligent pharmacist who knows how to fix policy and regulations and the business genius. I really see myself as being the catalyst to all of that. So it's through, I'm going to be creating a really great community. But then as well, eventually, we're going to be creating entertainment. It's wild for me to consider this, but I have my eyes set on launching a Dungeons and Dragons themed pharmacy show, which we are working on now, which is weird and fun, of course. And then I'm also working on publishing a video game that is pharmacy themed. So because the reason why I'm doing this is the way you influence culture is through media and entertainment. And you would probably never have thought that there would be a pharmacy game, but there are video games about driving trucks in Europe. So why can't there be a video game about pharmacy?
Absolutely.
So I am very much focused on reshaping my industry. And I'm doing that one day at a time, albeit slower than I want it to. But that's the way it is, I think, for every visionary. I bet Martin Luther King Jr. was very frustrated with how slow society was changing at the time. That gives me a little bit of comfort. And I don't think I have such a challenge like he had with civil discourse, but my challenge is much more focused within a very small industry within the United States. But I'm up for it. And if I die tomorrow, I can be very satisfied in the last few moments of my life that my work, just my work, has changed hundreds, if not thousands of lives. That to me feels very satisfying. And it's also given me a really great life with my family. So what's up next for Alex? Pharmacy, dying, and continuing working at the Happy Farm D.
Do you know what? We are going to have a second one because I want to discuss drawing monsters with your daughters as well as the Dungeons and Dragons, which I read as I skimmed through your bios earlier. So definitely,
please, if you're watching the video of this, my daughter just made me this little dwarf with a pickaxe with some things. So I'm happy to come again.
I love that. Alex, indispensable, available at all good bookshops and Amazon as well.
Of course.
If you, where else can people find you?
thehappyfarmd.com. But if you actually want to connect with me and like talk to me, go to LinkedIn. I'm all about LinkedIn, and that's where I hang out.
Fantastic. We'll put those all in the show notes, but just like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much. It was fantastic. Really enjoyed this conversation, Alex, and I'm sure our listeners will too. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.